I spent several days organizing the buffet and setting up the tents for my daughter-in-law's birthday, which was to be celebrated at my own summer house. But on the day of the event, my name was simply not on the guest list. My hands were trembling as I held the phone against my ear. From my car, parked half a block away, I could see the golden lights illuminating my garden, hear the music booming from my terrace, and observe the silhouettes of 120 people toasting in my house on the lake. The police dispatch answered on the third ring. "Good evening, this is Lucille Marie Solis speaking." My voice sounded steadier than I expected. "I am the owner of the house located at 847 Lakeview Drive. There are people holding an event on my property without my consent." I hung up, and in the silence that followed, something inside me finally broke. Or perhaps finally it put itself back together. How did I get here? How is it possible that a 67-year-old woman, a widow, a dedicated mother, ends up calling the police to evict her own daughter-in-law's birthday party? The answer is not simple. It never is when it comes to family. This started 3 weeks ago, when Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, called me with that sweet voice she only uses when she needs something. My son Ryan had been married to her for 2 years, in which I had tried with all my might to build a bridge between us. She always kept her distance as if I were an annoying stranger instead of the mother of the man she supposedly loved. But that afternoon in October, her tone was different, almost warm. "Mom, do you have a moment?" she asked. I was in my apartment in the city, the one where I had raised Ryan alone while my husband Ernest worked double shifts to pay for tuition. The same place full of photographs where my son smiled in his elementary school uniform, where we celebrated his graduation, where I cried 3 years ago, when Ernest's heart decided it had worked enough. "Of course, Vanessa, tell me." There was a pause. I could imagine her adjusting her hair, that gesture she made when she was calculating her words. "It is just that, you know, my 35th birthday is coming up, and Ryan and I were thinking, your lake house is gorgeous. Do you think you could lend it to us to do something intimate? Something for family, you know?" My heart skipped a beat. Family, she had said. That meant I would be included. It meant a chance to get closer to show her that I was not the meddling mother-in-law she seemed to believe I was. "Of course," I replied, perhaps too quickly. "The house is for the family." I did not know that the word family meant something very different to her. I did not know I was affirming my own humiliation with that answer. I did not know that in 3 weeks I would be sitting in my car watching strangers toast in the garden I planted with my own hands, while I, the owner, the one who paid every penny of that celebration, did not even have a seat at the table. But we will get to that. First, let me tell you how I went from being the generous mother-in-law to the invisible woman, how I spent $5,000 of my savings decorating an event from which I was excluded, and how I discovered that sometimes silence is the most powerful weapon a mother can use. Because that night, when the patrol cars arrived with their blue and red lights reflecting on the lake, when the music stopped abruptly, and 120 guests were left with their glasses halfway to their lips, I finally recovered something more important than my house. I recovered my dignity. But before continuing, if you want to know how this story ended, subscribe to the channel. Because what happened next changed not only my life, but my son's life forever. That call from Vanessa came on a Tuesday afternoon, just when I was watering the pots of geraniums on my balcony. The October sky in the city had that pearl gray color that announces rain, and I was thinking of Ernest. I always thought of him on Tuesdays because Tuesdays were our day. The day we went to the local market, bought fresh produce, and he made me laugh with his impressions of the chili vendor. 3 years without him, and Tuesdays still hurt. When I saw Vanessa's name on the screen, I confess, I hesitated before answering. Our relationship was tense. She greeted me at family gatherings with kisses that did not touch my cheek, smiles that did not reach her eyes. Ryan always justified her coldness. "She is shy, Mom. Give her time." 2 years. I had given her 2 full years. "Mom." Her voice sounded different that afternoon, less distant. "I need to ask you for a huge favor." Now, I sat in the wicker rocking chair that Ernest gave me on our 20th anniversary. My heart, foolish and hopeful, began to beat faster. "Tell me, daughter." I called her daughter. How naive I was. "You know that on November 28th I turned 35, she continued, "and Ryan wants to do something special for me. We thought about your lake house. That place is magical, facing the water with the garden so beautiful. It would be perfect for an intimate celebration." "Intimate," she repeated. "Family," she added later. I clung to those words like a castaway to a life raft. The lake house was not just a property. It was the dream that Ernest and I built brick by brick. He worked as an engineer in a construction company, 14-hour shifts, Saturdays included. I gave sewing classes at home to help with expenses. For 15 years, we saved every possible dollar. When we finally bought that land facing the lake in 2005, we cried holding each other watching the sunset. We built the house little by little. First the basic structure, then the large windows that Ernest designed so that all the light from the lake would enter. Then the garden where I planted bougainvilleas, jacarandas, and that coral rose bush that bloomed every spring. It was worth a fortune now, but for me it was priceless. Of course, Vanessa, I replied, feeling that warmth in my chest that hope gives. "The house is for the family. How many people are you calculating?" "Oh, well, something small, Mom, intimate. Maybe 20, 30 people maximum." 30 people. It sounded reasonable, manageable. "Perfect. Do you need help with anything? Do you want me to go a few days before to prepare the house?" There was a brief pause. Afterward, her voice changed subtly. She adopted that tone I would later learn to recognize the tone of someone who is getting exactly what they want. "Oh, Mom, you are so sweet. Look, if it is not too much trouble. Do you know any good catering service over there? It is just that you have more experience in these things." More experience? Code for older. "I know several," I replied, ignoring the sting. "Let me make some calls." "You are a sweetheart. And hey, do you know anyone who rents tents? It is just that if it rains, you know." "I will handle it, do not worry." And flowers, right. Something elegant, but not so classic. You understand me. Every request came wrapped in telephone smiles. I accepted them, all thinking I was building something, a relationship, a complicity of family women. How blind I was. That night I called Ryan, my son, my only son. The reason I endured years of loneliness while Ernest worked. The reason I sewed school uniforms until my fingers hurt. "Son, what a joy that you are having Vanessa's party at the house. It is going to be very nice." "Yes, Mom." His voice sounded tired, distracted. "Thanks for lending it." "It is not lending Ryan. It is sharing what is ours." "Sure, Mom. Hey, I have a meeting in 5 minutes. Talk tomorrow." He hung up before I could tell him I loved him. That should have been my first sign. Ryan never had time anymore. Since he married Vanessa, our conversations were reduced to rushed calls, family meals where he checked his cell phone more than my face. She had him completely absorbed, but I kept waiting for things to get better, waiting to be included. The following days were a whirlwind. I contacted 3 catering services, compared prices, chose the menu barbecue brisket, pulled chicken sliders, pasta salad, garden rice. Nothing too sophisticated, but tasty homemade. Real food. Then the tents. Vanessa wanted white ones, elegant. I found them 3 large tents, metal structure chiffon curtains. $1,000. The flowers were more complicated. Not so classic, she had said. I hired a florist from the next town over who worked with coral roses, white hydrangeas, and dark green foliage. Arrangements for the table's garlands to hang. Everything was adding up. But I was not keeping count yet. I was too busy dreaming of the moment when Vanessa would hug me and say, "Thanks, Mom, I do not know what we would do without you." The problem with dreams is that sometimes they blind us to reality, and reality was about to hit me harder than I ever imagined. The Friday before the event, I drove the 2 hours from the city to the lake with my SUV loaded with cleaning products, clean sheets, and 3 suitcases. I had asked for a week off at the school where I taught embroidery workshops to ladies in the neighborhood. I did not earn much, but since Ernest died, that money was my independence. Vanessa had insisted that I arrive early. To coordinate everything, Mom. You know the house better than anyone. When I opened the front door, the musty smell hit me. The house had gone 3 months without being used. The windows had that film of dust that time leaves cobwebs decorated the corners of the ceiling and the garden. Oh, my garden was neglected with the bougainvilleas growing out of control and dry leaves covering the grass. I rolled up my sleeves and started. First I swept, then I mopped. I cleaned window by window with vinegar and newspaper as my mother taught me. I shook out the curtains, aired out the rooms, changed the sheets in the 4 bedrooms. My knees protested every time I bent down. Age does not forgive, but I kept going. The garden was the heaviest part. I pruned the bougainvilleas, raked the leaves, cut the grass with the old mower that rattled at every turn. When I finished, my hands were full of blisters and my back burned as if needles had been stuck in me. But it looked beautiful. Like when Ernest and I came on weekends, sat on the terrace with coffee and sweet bread, watching the sun rise over the lake. Vanessa arrived on Saturday morning in her white BMW. She was wearing huge dark glasses, an ivory silk blouse, and those jeans that cost more than my entire paycheck. Ryan was driving with that face of exhaustion that was already